This is Comic Geek Speak, Book of the Month Club, Episode 3, Walking Dead. Thank you for listening to Comic Geek Speak, Book of the Month Club 3, The Walking Dead. Okay, that's enough of that. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Deemer.
I'm Jamie D.
I'm Scott.
I'm Shane Kelly.
I'm Peter Rios.
And with us for the very first time is our good friend, John Duffy.
How you doing?
About frickin' time.
So,
We've talked about him. We've mentioned him on and off. We finally got him here.
that's right.
Roped him into it.
He's larger than life now. This actually might take him down a notch, because now that, all the legends, and now I have to meet him, so it's... So before we get started with Book of the Month, John, we have to ask you, how did you first get into comic books?
Well, mainly my brothers. They both got comics at the old farmer's market. Used to get them, half the cover ripped off.
Yeah, just
quarter
like Scott.
For a bunch. And we had a whole toy chest full of comics in the basement, all kinds of things. We had old DC horror comics. We had the G.I. Combat, Sergeant Rock, Richie Rich, Archie's, pretty much you name it. Old Marvels, superheroes. So that's what really got me into it. But it wasn't until probably 1993 when I moved out to Pittsburgh for a year, and there's a comic shop right down the street from where I lived, that I really got into collecting big time.
Wow. So your collection is basically from 1993 to today?
That's crazy.
Pretty much. And with the help...
400 long boxes.
That's right. How many long boxes do you have now?
I have no idea. I'm trying to reduce it now with eBay's help, but that's slow going.
I think the last time I counted your long boxes, I estimated like 15 or 20,000 comics, just going without bags and boards and everything, back then.
I could probably build a house out of the long boxes, but...
All of his furniture in his bedroom is nothing but long boxes.
It's got a mattress on top of the boxes. Wow. Cool. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we're very happy. John is perhaps the world's largest zombie fan, so that's why he is excited to join us. And
At least the largest one we know.
And
That's
he's been talking up this comic ever since I can remember, and I've just never picked it up. And John's recommendations have never been wrong. I just chose not to do it.
Yeah. We always need some excuse to get off our asses and try new things.
Yeah.
So this show is good for all of us, as well as our listeners. So, the first trade of The Walking Dead by Robert Kirkman and Tony Moore. It's called Days Gone By. I was hesitant when I first heard about this, because I got to admit I'm not really a big zombie fan. I really couldn't care less. I mean, I liked Shaun of the Dead, and I liked 28 Days Later, that's what it's called. But like Night of the Living Dead and all that, you couldn't make me watch it. I just have no interest.
I agree.
But everyone on the board were just relentless. Like, you have to read this, you have to read. So I said, okay, let's do it. So actually, in the room, Scott, had you read this before, or was this your first exposure to it?
I had read some issues before, but I actually picked up the first trade at Wizard World Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
And I had read it since then. But I had read issues like sporadically before then.
So basically, the only person in the room who had read this before was John. So we were all first time. So what's everybody's first impression?
I loved it. I sat down and read all three of them right in a shot.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
I only read the first one, even though I have all three. I only read the first one because I didn't want to
be able to
have more knowledge, for this episode. I just wanted to stop, since this is one. But for an introductory package, I thought it was great, and it does make me want to read the next two, which, in judging comics, that's always a good thing.
Yeah, Jamie.
No, I hated it. No, that's just to piss a few people off. No, I'm serious. I loved it. It was really well done. When I first picked it up, it reminded me very much of 28 Days, a movie which I did enjoy, and from what I've heard and I've talked to some people about it, Kirkman hadn't even seen 28 Days. Or
Well, the
didn't
movie.
even know.
I think the story was that the movie actually wasn't even out yet, and he. I think I just read this in an interview with him. I think he said that he and Tony Moore were just coming up with ideas, and they went, "Wow, what if this guy just wakes up in a hospital and the whole world?"
I thought that
And-
seemed familiar.
And then they're like, "Oh, cool!" And they started doing the comic. And then before, like, I think they had the first issue done, but right before it came out, the movie came out, and then they went, "You gotta be kidding me! They're gonna think I stole this idea, but I had it done before the movie ever came out." And
Yeah,
so-
that was they hadn't seen any of it, and they, like you said, they thought it was an original idea, and I was like, oh crap.
it just goes to show you, though, how you can actually, two people in two different places can have the same original idea almost simultaneously, and it's like, who beat you to the press, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I think I have all these single issues, so I get the benefit of the letters pages. And yeah, that definitely was something that came up repeatedly the first several issues. People writing and saying, "Hey, why'd you rip off 28 Days Later?" And you kept saying, "No, I had this written long before I even saw that. Don't judge this, as a rip off." And I think eventually people finally said, "Okay, yeah, we believe you." But
Well, yeah, and other than the first opening scene, it's nothing like that movie, so it's, the rest of it is completely original.
I agree, and one of the things I liked about it was you didn't get everything, or you don't get everything in this first issue. This first volume trade paperback. They didn't even go in anywhere near explaining what happened, why the zombies have taken over.
Yeah, well, I read all three. You still don't know.
What's going on, and they don't even really even come close to approaching explaining it. It's so much more of a human, no pun intended, a human drama of the survivors, what they're doing to get by, what they're doing to get through, and the zombies are almost kind of just thrown in there as, it could be any other kind of predator. It could be, wolves. It could be anything like that. They're just kind of there. The reason these people are together, and how they're coping with the world now that it's totally changed.
Oh, by the way, I always forget to say, this is spoiler. So if you haven't read these, don't listen to this episode. Okay.
What? When did the first issue come out, and how is it monthly, and has it been pretty much on schedule?
Actually, I was looking at the cover dates today because I was curious to see how long it had been since I had originally read them, and I think it said November, December 2003 was the cover date on the first issue. So, schedule-wise, it hasn't always been monthly. It's more like between 30 and 50 days. There have been times that it's been a couple weeks late. There's been times it's been 3 weeks late, but then there are times that he gets a couple out almost in 1 month. So
I was
he's
going to
trying
say,
make up.
it must be pretty close, because if it came out December of 2003, I'm holding 18 issues in trades, and
they're
there's
in the high
got to be a
20s.
few more. Yeah, so it must be pretty close.
Just because I wanted to know if
Right.
if this kind of
20, I think is what it's up to.
it's up to 20, yeah.
Okay.
Because it predates all his Marvel writing, and does it predate his Invincible or no?
No, I think Invincible is first, right?
I was trying to figure that out, and I can't remember what Invincible is actually up to now, so I don't know if Walking Dead came first or not.
It's it. That's what I thought. I thought Invincible was up to like 25 because I thought I saw that in the preview. Just because I wanted to see, kind of, for me, it's like where in his writing is this? Is this before he gets the fame at Marvel, coming into Marvel, doing Marvel Team Up and doing some other projects for them? So I just wanted to see, where his writing style was at this point. And Brian's looking in previews right now for.
All right. The solicited is Invincible 28.
Which that's what, October, November?
and Walking Dead 24. So Invincible's going longer.
Cool. Okay.
I got to say, there's two things that grabbed me reading the first volume. Is I love that he used my name in one of the characters, which, right there I was hooked, whether it was a good book or not, because I never see my name
Yeah,
used
but look what
anywhere.
happened to him.
Yeah.
He was a real asshole.
I was okay with that, though. I was just happy to see my name. And
I don't think you think he's an asshole. Shane?
Yeah.
Really?
Wait, I'm trying to remember now. See, I read all three.
Shane's his partner.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an asshole.
Oh yeah, definitely.
See, I just
Okay,
took it as a
defend
little
your
messed up.
position first.
My
before I-
position, he moved in on the wife, and then he still didn't back off when the husband comes in. Now, granted, they did let him in the hospital, but they knew they let him in the hospital. That was the whole thing. They let him in the hospital. They knew he was in the hospital. They knew as far as they knew, the doctors were still there, the nurses were still there. They just let him in the hospital. Then, in a moment of her weakness, he swoops in, has a relationship with her, has sex with her, and then, he's suddenly going on as he's like, I'm her, protector, I'm her, blah blah blah, kind of living together as husband and wife with the kid. Then he comes back, I can't think of his name right now, Rick, your hero, and he still can't get over the fact that he's back now, and he has to pull back. I mean, that's
now here's why I totally disagree with that. First of all, number one, the cliffhanger is the death of Shane.
Right.
If he was an asshole, it wouldn't be as powerful. Like, there would be no reason to spotlight it. You would want him to die.
I did want him to die.
Yeah.
Right, but here's the thing. It's a heightened situation. Okay, zombies. They're running for their life. They don't know if Rick is even alive or dead.
Anymore.
I don't think of it as at all that he moved in on her. I think these are people who are living on the edge of their emotion, and I think it's also the reason why a lot of weeks go by before Shane really erupts, and you finally get the impression of why he finally tells Rick. Well, he doesn't really even tell it.
No, he never finds out.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it's like he's, everybody's living on the edge of their emotion. They thought he was dead, and you do strange things and you do extreme things in extreme situations, which is why she's feeling the way she is. I think if he was an asshole, she could care less what he feels like, but in this, I get that she really also. She cares for her husband, but she knows what she did was wrong, and she knew it was. But I don't think she's blaming Shane for doing that.
No,
but still, the big thing for me is still the cliffhanger. It's a friendship. Look where they started. They started where the guy took a bullet, practically for him. Rick took a bullet, trying to get away, and then it ends with his
sleeping
death.
with his wife.
What's that?
He repays him by sleeping with his wife.
No, see, I don't see.
Yeah, but
I
also
don't
see
see
Peter's.
that at all.
I
don't
agree
see
with
that at
Peter
all.
because it took a long time. When Rick first shows up, Shane tries to be normal and cordial and goes through a long time before anything happens. That would.
Plus, I think Kirkman is a good enough writer that he's going to create these characters that even though they do these extreme things, you're going to sympathize with. Like he even says in the introduction, this is about characters and characterizations, and interplay between characters. And I don't.
No,
I was not
have
rooting for him
absolutely
to
no
die.
sympathy for him.
Oh wow!
I have no
What do you think?
sympathy.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
was
think, John?
I was so glad when he got shot. I was like, yes, that ass is
I
gone.
wouldn't say I'm not glad when he got shot, but I felt bad that it came to that.
No, I only felt bad for Rick because his one-time best friend had become an asshole. That's the reason. That's how I felt bad. I didn't feel bad that the guy died.
I mean, I agree. I think that when he died, I was glad that the kid shot him because it was something I didn't really want to see, that kind of love triangle played out in this
Yes.
book for a long-term thing, and I'm glad they kind of just got it over with. But I think it was a very realistic portrayal of something that may happen. Yeah, with everybody under so much stress. They're even talking about how they haven't had a good night's sleep in this whole month since the things went bad. So I think it was just great characterization on Kirkman's part.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of gray area, which is kind of funny because this book is gray tones. I think there's a lot of gray area when it comes to Shane, and I'm anxious to read the next two. Like obviously, you guys have more hindsight because you've read the next two, but
I haven't read the third one yet. But
oh, yeah,
I
I'm
did
ready
read
for
the second one.
So I just want to see if they. You don't need to tell me, but I want to see if they keep playing with that only because I thought it was powerful. I thought that whole, and you're right. I don't want to see a triangle for the rest of the stories, but I thought it was very powerful.
And I also there's a couple things. One, I'm not big on zombies. Two, I'm not big on black and white comics or gray tones, and I loved both of them in this story. Reading it, usually, very rarely do I get that engrossed in a comic book that I hear nothing going on around me. Like I can still pick up the TV, the phone, kids knocking around something and wondering what they're doing or whatever. But I was totally engrossed in this that even like a zombie would jump out. I'm like, oh, okay, well, you know what? I was listening to their conversation, trying to read their conversation so heavily that I totally didn't even think about somebody jumping out right at that point because I was listening, in my mind, listening to them talk in a group around a campfire or whatever. So I got totally engrossed in this. And the first one I read during the day, and then I did go and read the second and third one, and I read them at night. And that was a little creepy reading it. Only went up in the house. I kept one little light on for a little bit of like spookiness, and it was really good to read it like that. It was cool. But I really got into reading this.
Unless anybody has something to say, I want to ask John your fascination with zombies and zombies movies and just stuff like that. Because I want to know what the draw is, basically. So.
See, he is a zombie. That's the problem.
Well, that's actually kind of tough to answer because I don't know exactly what it is that ever drew me to the zombie genre. I think my brother bought a VHS copy of Night of the Living Dead, the original, when I was probably around 12, 13 years old.
The impressionable age.
Exactly, and I watched it with him, and it was just like this, I don't know, a kind of movie I had never seen before, and it was one of the few movies to ever actually really kind of affect me and make me so anxious that I really couldn't, sleep that night. And the same thing with the original Dawn of the Dead when I finally saw that. Actually, the first two times I saw that, same effect. I'd be lying awake in bed till 3 a.m, and my mind is just racing. And even though, there's part of me that's thinking, this is all just fantasies, never happened, I'm still in part of my mind thinking, oh crap, what would happen if there really were zombies out there right now? What would I do? So, I don't know, those first two movies by Romero, I think just set the bar. And I like Day of the Dead. I don't think it's quite as good. I think Dawn of the Dead is the best of the trilogy. The original Return of the Living Dead, I loved that first movie, even though that had some comedy elements to it. It was still a good movie. And ever since those were the initial ones I saw, and ever since then I've been, drawn to that genre. Unfortunately, there's so much junk put out in that genre that, comics and movies, that this comic was like a godsend, basically, because it's all these years I'm dying for a good zombie comic, and it's just so much crap that by the time this finally came out, I saw it solicited in previews, and I was like, gee, should I even order this, or is it just going to be more junk? And I sort of reluctantly ordered, thought, well, I'll give the first couple issues a try, see how it is, just drop it if it's no good. And I got that first issue, and I was like, well, finally, somebody knows how to do it right. So, and Kirkman's pretty much hasn't let me down so far, and I'm so glad that this comic is selling well, and it looks like it's going to be around for quite a while.
Well, yeah, he has endless stories, you could tell. He can take it for as long as he wants.
Yeah.
There's really no end until he decides he wants one.
Okay,
Yeah.
John, I have to ask you, where do you put Night of the Comet in that movie list?
I've never actually seen
Oh.
Night of the Comet all the way through. I've seen the beginning when everybody's turning into red dust. But,
Yeah,
that-
every time that's on, I have to sit and watch it.
yeah, so that
I never
one,
even heard of that movie.
Oh. Well, there's the one guy that's on Voyager, Robert Beltran. He's in it. And I can't think of the girl who was in Weekend at Bernie's, the main, hot chick in a bikini. She was in it as the main character, and she had a sister. And
When the hell did this movie come out?
Oh, 80s. B-movie 80s.
And that's why I never heard of it.
And it's not total zombie movie, but as an effect of what happens, there are zombies out there. And I just always wondered if John saw that.
No, but it's definitely in that survival
Yeah.
horror genre. So,
I do. That's the one thing this book makes me think of constantly is, what would I do in that situation? Now, of course, I'm reading it while I'm perfectly safe and I'm in my totally normal mind. You know, there's not a high stress survival situation going on, but I think, well, couldn't you just do this and then do that and then you'd be okay and then do this and then, blah, 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 But some of the things that I was thinking were real easy, he does talk about them in like the second and third ones, and it does start to change. You go, wow, I hadn't thought of that, and so now that changes everything. So he's pretty good. He's really thinking it through, I think, a lot. He's not just winging it.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say a quick synopsis for any of you who are listening to this who haven't read the book or haven't, and this can be pretty much summed up in real quick. You meet your hero, Rick. He gets shot, and he's in the hospital. He wakes up, and there's nobody in the hospital anymore. Except he gets out of his bed, he finds a hospital full of zombies. They start attacking him. He runs, he's a policeman. He gets to the police station, gets a car, gets some guns, figures his wife is going to probably run, if she's still alive, she's going to run to Atlanta, gets in a car and starts driving. Through a whole series of events, he meets up with, which unfortunately I thought was a little too convenient, but they had to do it. He meets up with a group of survivors who never got to Atlanta because Atlanta has been taken over. He gets to Atlanta, finds a guy. Atlanta's been taken over totally by zombies. The guy is part of a group. The group conveniently has his wife and kid and his partner, who we had already talked about, who's an asshole. And sorry, Peter, he is. And
no, he's not.
He's tragic.
He's a
Tragic. Not an asshole anymore. He's a dead body.
That's right.
So, and pretty much from there, that's where the story goes. It's them coping with finding food, coping with defending themselves against the zombies, coping with just where the hell they're going to go. I mean, there's no TV stations anymore, no radio stations, no nothing. They can't get any information. The normal humans seem to be very few and far between. They really don't run into any other normal humans except among the group. You really don't know how the group got together. I mean, I guess they kind of explain it, but they don't really explain. And that's one of the nice things about this book. It keeps you wanting to come back for more. So it ends, as we've told you, with a cliffhanger with his partner getting killed, and then third and fourth go from there. And it's... I'll be honest, if you haven't read it, read it. You're going to want to read the next two after this, and maybe even add this to your list. I'm kind of going to wait for the trades.
Well,
Yeah,
now that I
now
have
that I
three trades,
started
I mean,
with
I
the
gotta.
trades, yeah.
But I'm like, please, is the fourth trade out
Yeah,
yet? I'm
me too.
totally jonesing now.
Okay, just because this is probably what Robert Kirkman is hoping will happen, I will give you further proof why this guy's not an asshole. First of all, if he's an asshole, what's Rick's wife? Because she had every part in this.
A moment of weakness. I said that.
Well,
but
why-
he
yeah,
took
but why
advantage
is-
of that moment of weakness.
He
You
didn't
don't
know he
if
was
you
dead.
are
Listen,
yes,
listen, wait,
he didn't know
wait.
he didn't know. You say he didn't know he
Listen
was
to
dead?
me, listen
He
to
wasn't
this.
dead. They let him alive. They
But
let him in the
but how many
hospital.
weeks was that? That
They
was
let
like
him-
That was like almost a month or
But
something.
they let him
like
in the
that.
hospital where they
But
thought he was
didn't
safe.
know.
So,
They
so,
didn't know.
so you're telling me?
But she didn't know
So
either.
you're telling me if I think Shane's dead, I'm supposed to go in and try to bang Carlene?
Yes. no, wait a
She's
minute.
gorgeous and everything, but I'm not going to do that
No.
because
Woo-hoo.
if it
Here's
is,
the thing. Here's the thing. I
if
love
it
this.
is that, I will not go there. Okay, go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
okay. No, I mean I can see your point. Now, believe me, you guys know of anybody. Anyway,
Meanwhile, Scott's rolling here on the floor.
when
Gonna shoot Shane in the neck on the way
right
out.
before
Let's test this. Go boom!
right before Shane gets shot, he
Not the real life
he
Shane.
he erupts at Rick, and he's saying, I got nothing. I got no friends, no family, no respect. Before this even happened, he had no place. He had nothing. Being with the survivors, taking care of them, he finds importance. He finds a meaning for himself. Again, extreme situation, extreme emotion. Rick comes back. Shane doesn't become what you're saying, an asshole, until that chapter. I think it must be the last page of one of the books, when he says, he says to Rick's wife, who I don't even, Lori, I guess her name is, I forget, where he says, what about that night on the road down there? And she goes, that night, then there's a pause, that night was a mistake. Until the last amount of hope that he gets, he thinks is that maybe, possibly down the road, he could be with Lori, As strange as it is with the husband coming back, But until she's the one that finally cuts that last thing, that's when he starts to really get jerky to Rick. Before that, he's not. He's still, and
right,
I know,
which further proves that he's an asshole.
No, why? Because he could have been an asshole before. He could have been like, dude,
No, but
why
he's
you back?
He was, as soon as he slept with her. And like I said, in there they tell him that they let him at the hospital because they knew he would be safe. And they had to...
But how do you know
They thought
that?
he would be safe.
Thought he
Okay,
would
they
be
thought he
know
would be
that?
safe.
But they also thought Atlanta was
see,
safe.
exactly,
And look what
that
happens.
they-
They get to Atlanta and they
exactly.
can't get in. So who's to think that if Atlanta can't survive, well, this hospital is surely
I
be
think-
overrun.
You don't take advantage of
Yeah,
the woman
but
like
as
that.
a
Well,
woman, you don't. But then why is she not to blame?
I'm not saying that she is totally... In a moment of weakness, she went there. And in a moment of
Exactly.
weakness, I would tell her no.
Yeah, see, I don't think
Well,
because
in that
see,
circumstance,
that's where
I
I'm
don't
gonna,
know.
That's where I'm
Yeah,
going to
I'm
disagree. You probably have to assume at that point
if
that
you-
everybody you ever knew is dead. You're with a girl who you thought attractive your entire, for 20 years of being friends or whatever.
Until-
Which I've been in that situation where my best friend, I thought his girlfriend was smoking hot, and it's like, man, if she wasn't his girlfriend,
I'll lay
I'd
it
be
out
all
there.
over that.
That's the whole reason why I broke up with my girlfriend is because this same exact thing happened. So I mean and for me to defend this is, I think, really weird right now. I'm going through a whole thing.
But
Your friends were eaten by zombies?
As soon as Rick walks back into camp, that's when you say, okay, that's over.
Yeah, but see but that's not. It's never over.
No. But you don't be a dick to your best friend.
But
But
he's
he
not for a
wasn't.
long time.
He's not until after he gets pushed away by Lori.
Right, but then that should be further proof that, look, nothing's going to happen. Forget the girl. Guys, a true guy's friendship is supposed to last through anything. And a girl isn't going to stop a friendship.
It's never going to happen.
Well, I think one thing is we don't know what's going on in Shane's mind the moment Rick shows up. Is he actually happy to see Rick at first, and then it kind of sinks in that,
Because
this is going to
actually,
change
I always-
everything? Or is he thinking the whole time, oh, crap, why couldn't you just stay away? I had it going good.
That's exactly what I picked up from kind of the drawings that he did. It was one of those, oh, great, you're alive, wonderful, okay, great, okay.
Which
I
right
thought
there
he
is
was-
proof that they could not have been that good of friends. If that's the way he was feeling, you could not have been that
And
good
I
of
thought
friends
he
in the
was.
first
I
place.
thought he was more excited to see Rick come back. And just after people started gravitating towards him to be the leader of the group, that's also what contributed to everything going shit down the toilet. But before that, he was fine because he thought he would still, be the one that they would go to because
Right.
Rick's new.
He was the leader. He got the girl. Everything's happy.
Everything's fine. And just after Rick came, and it took a long time for things to just slowly drift away from him, and then he started to lose it. And I think of
I
him
don't know.
more of a
I
tragic
I
person.
just picture, my best friend, who's been my best friend for a long time, and he's the exact person I would want to be with if the world was going to shit and I had to survive out on my own. That's who I would want. And girl or no girl, he's my best friend. I mean, there's no two ways about it. So if you're really that good of that character flaw in Shane was there 10 years ago, and Rick probably knew it was there. Like if you're cops and you're under the heat of the moment on a daily basis, that kind of thing is going to peek out. It might not come out in full force, but it's going to be there a little bit here, a little bit there, and he would have known. And I think Rick was just an asshole.
And see, I think it's interesting that they're cops because I think, and I'm totally generalizing, but I know there are a lot of stories like cops and firemen and things like that where this stuff happens. Where, look at the 9/11, what happened in 9/11 when a widow of a fireman, her husband died, so the other firemen would rally around her and help her family, and then there were stories about this. Then they would go off with one of those firemen, and then that fireman was married, and his wife's left behind. I mean, I think it happens probably even more in this kind of situation because they're almost so.
There's
There's a whole thing where they say sometimes your partner is even higher priority than your wife. Like they talk about that whole thing,
Right.
and you share things with your partner more than you do with your wife. So I think, I don't know. I think it's not a character flaw. I think it's something that, like you said before, you don't know what you're going to do in that situation. And I think I go back to that cliffhanger. Shane is dead not because he's the villain, but because, like what somebody said before, he's the tragic character. He's the one that suffers the most is suffering the most, even though it's something that he did. You know, it's not uplifting. You know, it doesn't make you feel good. You know, so
Yes, it does.
oh, see, I don't think it does. I think it's like, you know, this guy, his friend died. You know, he still doesn't. And
But
as
he
far
stopped
as I
being his
know,
friend a long time ago.
Yeah,
That's what
but
I say.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
All right.
The room is
Say
divided.
friendship went out the window when the
Well,
dick
one thing
went
I
in.
have to say about the trade, like you said, you're going to collect it in the trades, Jamie. Is
Yeah.
okay. I'll give a positive before I give a negative. I love that the covers to the trades all connect. The zombies connect. If you put them side by side,
really?
they all connect. Yeah. Did you
I
notice that?
I never tried that.
It's really cool. Like that, I think is a neat idea. Where you're putting
Oh,
pieces.
yeah.
So that's just awesome. Now the other thing I don't like is you don't know where one issue begins and
Oh, I
one
hate
issue
that.
next.
Yeah.
And
a
there's
lot
no
of trades
cover
do
gallery.
that. That's bullshit.
There's no. I mean, like, I know you want to
I
read
like
it
the
all
cover
in
galleries.
one. Yeah, I wish there was a
Yeah.
cover gallery too. I know you want to read it in one shot and make it seem like a story, but there are definite themes that he's dealing with issue to issue, and it bugs me that I don't know. I can figure it out, but I just wish it was
But
clear.
there shouldn't be.
I wish it
it
was
should-
clear.
You should read it, and then the end, and then there's the cover for issue 2, and then you read it, and then the end, and then there's. I mean, we're not. You're not fooling us. We know that this was published as a monthly comic. We know that it's 6 issues. It says right on it, you know, in the fine print inside, collect 6 issues. Why are they trying to trick us?
They're not trying to trick us. I just think it reads nicely. You don't need to know where one issue ends.
But
No,
I
I
know
just-
I'm reading
I-
comics.
Again, I disagree.
See, now I
Okay,
Because
let's
we-
go.
let's go.
Outside, we're gonna
I agree with
fight.
Jamie on this one. I would just like the cover gallery in the back. I don't
No,
need
no,
it
no,
throughout
no,
the
no,
book.
you don't-
For this.
That's going to come in the $34.95 deluxe edition hardcover.
Because there are definite themes that he's dealing with specific issues. Like, you know, there's one episode where, I mean, one issue where you meet them or you learn more about their life, and then there's the other one where they're getting the guns in the city, and then there's like another one where they're teaching each other how to shoot guns. Like, there's like reading it. There's a reason why there are certain cliffhangers that where they're supposed to be. You know, where you find out that Shane and Lori slept together. One of the other cliffhangers is
Well, on a much simpler level, I just want to know where the end of one issue is, because when I sit down to read, I want to read one comic's worth. Like I read a comic before I go to bed each night, and I don't want to be guessing, is this the end? Is that the end? Maybe I'll read to here. No, look at the time. I really should go to bed, but if I really only need 2 more pages to get to the end of that comic, that's what I'm going to read to. It's a comic book. I want a beginning and an end.
Then buy comic books.
No, but I'm buying the trade.
Buy comic books.
No, because most trades do that. They give you the. I mean, you know,
Buy comic books.
the Visionaries, Fantastic Four with John Byrne. They have the cover. It says the month, the whole business. It's right on there.
like this I think this is the cliffhanger where you find out that the one guy, Jim, I think his name is, the mechanic that doesn't talk a lot, where he has a bite in his arm, and then the next page is his arm all wrapped up. But like when I counted it, somewhere in there is the cliffhanger, and they're having the funeral for the one girl, and I'm like, okay, I think it's the bite in the arm, because that would be the most important thing. If you're counting the pages, you know, that's the most important, you know, thing that comes up. And it's like, that's effective to me. You know what I mean? Not going on and reading.
Take a
is
little
not.
pause
Yeah.
and go.
It's where the TV commercial would go, you know? So,
No,
I
like
100
commercials.
I 100% agree with you, Peter. In every trade, I
somebody
want
who-
covers.
From somebody who TiVos all of his TV shows to ignore the TV commercials and know where the cliffhanger ends and stops. What's your complaint? I just...
No, but I still have like when I make the DVDs, I don't have episode 1 and 2 run back to back. I have a start and a finish to each episode. This is the same thing. An issue is an episode. They're written that way.
And this
book.
and this
It's in a book
goes.
form.
This is what, when we always talk about writing for the trade and writing for books, a smart writer like Jeff Johns and Robert Kirkman and other people who I'm forgetting, they know that a monthly thing needs to appeal to people monthly. It needs to get that next one coming in, all right? So if he's writing that, I don't want the trade to lose that attraction and lose that effect. You know, I want the cliffhanger, because maybe I want to put it down and go, you know, get something to eat, and I want to, like you say, I just want a good point where I can stop and go, wow, that was a great
The
issue.
writer intended me to stop here,
He did. He
even
really
if
did.
only for a few moments.
I mean, if this was meant to be written all in once, then he should have put this whole trade out
In one
in
issue.
one shot,
Right.
not all the things.
I
That's how I
100%
feel.
agree with you.
So,
Plus, I'm just anal retentive, and I know it's 6 comic books. I want to know what those 6 comic books are.
You're both wrong.
What's his name? I forget.
Glenn.
Anybody else think that Glenn is Short Round from Indiana Jones Temple of Doom?
No time for love, Dr. Jones.
He's got the New York Yankee cap on, and Oriental background. Yeah, I'm thinking just off the top of my head, since we're arguing, I just thought I'd change the subject.
Since it is a comic book,
Asian. Sorry,
since it is a comic book, we'll talk about the one thing we haven't spoken about yet.
Jeez.
Sorry.
We just went back about 50 years.
Sorry.
He's a real slant. Come on.
Oh.
I'm joking. Anybody who knows me knows I'm
You
joking.
of all people should not make jokes like that. You better
Okay,
make sure they know that was sarcasm.
That was, take it in the context I said it.
And I apologized. I'm sorry.
So
Asian.
anyway, the other thing that's important to talk about is the artwork. I think is awesome.
Oh,
Tony
yeah.
Moore does
Totally.
an excellent job.
Actually, I want to know what he's doing and why he has stopped doing it.
Yeah, because you know what? I like his work a little better than I like Charlie Adler.
Yeah, and I do like Charlie Adler. I liked him in his work on X-Files when he was doing X-Files for a while.
Well, what I like better about Tony Moore's artwork is I can more clearly differentiate between the characters. When I was reading volumes 2 and 3, there were a lot of people I'm going, I don't really know who said that, but it doesn't really matter. I'll just go on to the next word balloon, because a lot of the guys all kind of look the same, and a lot of the women all kind of look the same. Whereas when I was reading the first trade, I didn't have that problem, because I think they were very clearly distinguished in their faces and everything, and so it was a little...
Did anybody get a little Steve Dillon vibe on some of the faces and some of the expressions?
Some
of the panel, the way the borders are all kind of squiggly as opposed to straight? I got a Steve Dillon vibe.
I definitely saw some Steve Dillon in here, yeah.
Got a little the pie pan face going on some of the characters.
Yeah. So, as far as the zombie book goes, John, does this follow the zombie lore?
Well, you can tell that Kirkman is a huge fan of the Romero original trilogy, because, these are the slow-moving, they don't talk, they're not intelligent, shot to the brain will take them out. You don't have any of these newer style running zombies. No zombies, getting intelligence after a while, which is one of the things that always annoyed me about some of the other comics that have come out over the years. Is
you and your modern zombies.
Well, like that was, a lot of people talk about Dead World and like how that was such a classic comic for a while, and I found a trade of like the first several issues of that at one point and tried to read it, and I couldn't even get through it. It just, there's zombies using guns, wearing leather jackets and bandanas, and it just had no appeal to me whatsoever.
So no zombie gangs?
No. I mean, this is, it's intelligently written. It's got the great characterization, and that's what so many books that have tried to do the same kind of subject have lacked. And I think that's why this book is actually, surviving when so many others have disappeared.
Yeah, you say intelligent zombie, and I think Super Friends Bizarro voice going, me gonna be nuclear physicist, take out world, I couldn't read that. That's bad.
Well, let's hear, let's go to our audience here. We have an email from Chris Niesman, the guy who did all our interviews for us in Chicago, which was great.
And he interviewed
Tony Moore. Yeah, he got a sketch from Tony Moore. He actually drew it while standing at the urinal right in the bathroom against the wall. Yeah, so it's definitely an original.
That's a unique story.
Was it yellow colored?
That was so lame. But Chris is one of the people on the board who was so persistent that we should read this book. So he says, "Hey folks, I wanted to let you know how excited I am that you've chosen The Walking Dead as the book of the month. I have never been a fan of the horror genre and only picked this title up because of a hard sell recommendation from a close friend who has never steered me wrong. After about 6 pages, I was hooked. It's hard to pick one thing that stands out for me. Number one has to be the character development. Every character is flawed. Every character has facets of their past and present lives that impact how they try to exist in this world gone mad. Even with the flaws, as a reader, I found myself caring for each one of them. Even Shane, who makes you ask yourself, would I have done the same thing given the circumstances? Shut
Bravo.
up, Peter. Shut up.
I was going to say bravo.
And he made
Thank you.
the choice and made him an asshole.
The feeling,
Stop.
the feeling of being wrapped up and taken for the ride strikes me here more than in any other book I read. I get the sense that I'm with these people on their journey with them. The sense of watching and not actually reading is fantastic. Secondly, no one is safe in this book. You can't find this in most superhero books. The X-Men don't kill off major characters every 4 or 5 issues. Well, actually they do, but they always come back.
They just bring them back.
And not in the way they do in The Walking Dead. And last is the art. Each artist that has worked on this book has been able to set a creepy mood, yet doesn't go over the top into straight-out gore. To wrap it up, the best way to explain The Walking Dead from my point of view is that I don't read the book. I pull up a chair, turn down the lights, and drive into it like a movie. It's really a fricking swear book. Well, I mean, I agree with everything except for Shane.
Yeah, but see, he put both of our arguments in there. He says everybody's flawed, and he says, but yet he still cared about Shane. So, I mean, he's exactly seeing my point. I have to ask about the one scene where Rick and who's the I'm not going to say it. Who's the Asian kid?
Glenn.
Glenn, thank you.
Say Short Round. Who's Short Round?
Short Round, yeah, who's Short Round? The whole thing where they go and they put the smell. He says, he figures that
Yep.
it's probably the smell.
Yeah.
And so, and I never even thought of that before. Like, is it? Do you think that's?
I've never come
John-
across dead zombies.
Yeah, I never come across.
it
to
makes
rubber
sense.
ass.
When I
sense,
run
though.
into them, I usually wipe myself full of their crap and then just
Just
waltz
wander
right through.
So I thought that was neat because
Oh,
I
yeah.
that never popped into my mind. Has that ever been addressed in any movies?
No, actually, that's one thing Romero kind of never answered was, how do the zombies know that this person's alive and I should eat them, and this person's
Well,
dead,
that was-
I should leave them alone.
That was one of the great scenes from Shaun of the Dead, where
Yes,
they were all
I was just gonna say
practicing how they were going to walk like a zombie and all that. Come on, do no, you do much better.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, it's like they had some kind of, spider sense of, who do I eat? And, it's kind of cool. Like, he's done that, throughout the series, is all kinds of little cool, innovative ways to use the zombies or have things happen with the zombies that you've never seen in any other movie. So he's been very clever and very original in handling them. So
What about to go along with that? Like, I guess this will be revealed once we find out what exactly happens. Like, what's transferred, what makes people zombies. Like, I guess it's either like a virus or something has to happen, right? For this.
I don't know. I mean, I read all 3 and
The
they don't tell
zombie
you.
fairy.
Yeah, like what's the contagion?
It gives
like
you
the tooth
it gives
fairy.
you a little hint of how widespread it can be, but it does not tell you how or why.
Well, I know the letters page of the very first issue, he pretty much came out and said it's doubtful that he'll ever reveal what caused the plague, because I think he feels like to do that would take away
True.
something important from the comic. Like, it needs to remain a mystery, because no matter what explanation he comes up with, it's not going to be good enough.
Right.
So,
Not going to be good enough, but then it would also you would have to take the book to that level, because then they would have to come up with a cure or go research why it happened and why they're, you know what I mean? So yeah, I can see what
I mean,
And
unless he says it like when he decides he's going to end the book and he finally, in the last story arc, reveals it and closes it all up. But I mean,
Yeah.
I think it would be better if we just never knew.
But then you also have to wonder, like, how much would it be? How much would it sound like anything else that's been out there, like Stephen King's The Stand, something like that, where it's a government plague that goes out and starts eating people alive? Or, you just, why do you need it? I mean, I would love to know, but on the same vein, why do you need it?
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if he actually ever goes back, because there's a whole time period there when, Rick is in the coma that you don't know what took place. You don't know. You never got to see the world go to hell, and he hasn't really done anything to indicate that he ever is going to go back and really tell that story. And it's kind of cool that you really don't even need it at this point. Like, there's so much going on, and it's so interesting in itself that it's kind of not necessary at this
Yeah,
point.
I think it would almost take away, because there'd be so many people who are still alive then. It's more fun when most people are dead.
Because to do that, then you would almost have to sprinkle some clues into exactly what happened. It can't all of a sudden be one day we wake up and there are zombies popping up. It would have to be, something was spreading, something happened. I mean, you see all the army guys in Atlanta that were trying to protect them, and they all don't seem to be zombies. They all just seem to be dead. And there's some dead bodies and there's some zombies there, and you don't know how they got to be that. I mean, if everybody got eaten by zombies, then they should all be rising, and you don't see that. You just, like I said, you see the tank there. The one scene you see a tank with all kinds of like army guys falling out from it and all that, and it's just, I love the mystery, and I don't want him to tell us. I'd rather just keep it a mystery.
Something I'd like to see, because I just saw that Glenn said that it was a month that between when Rick got shot and then when he woke up again. I would like to see how some of the main characters, and maybe it happens in the second and third one, how they escaped or how they dealt with it. Like I think some of those might be interesting to see, like how they got away from their home, or was it all? Did everybody have trouble, or did everybody? Some people got out easily, or whatnot.
Unfortunately, since you haven't read the second and third,
they do.
They start to drop like flies. So you're really not going to be able to find out how the people get to where they're going, because they're all dying left and right. So,
but I think it'd be kind of cool. I think that'd be a little.
It'll be interesting. Yeah.
All right, we have another comment. This one's an audio one. It's from Ryan Haynes in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So we're going to listen to what Ryan has to say.
Zombies coming for you, what you gonna do? Zombies coming for you, what you gonna do? Zombies coming for you, what you gonna do? You may be a zombie, but you still are trash. You may be a zombie, but you still are trash. Maybe a zombie, maybe a zombie, maybe. Sorry about that.
Hey guys, this is Ryan Haynes from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I just finished reading The Walking Dead by Roger Kirkman and Terry Moore. People have been recommending this book to me for months now. I finally, my public library, which I get most of my comics through. Kudos to the public library for carrying comic books. They finally just got it in right before you guys announced it's the book of the month, so I read it, and it was great. It inspired me to give you this audio commentary, a little musical intro complete with that. And I have to say that I really liked it. I've read some other zombie comics before. Let me say the medium was not very refined before The Walking Dead came along. I would say it's the Dark Knight Returns of zombie comics. And I've seen some zombie movies. I'm not a huge genre fan or anything like that, but I have to say that I really enjoyed this from the standpoint that it wasn't necessarily about zombies. I mean, there's zombies in it, but I think the thing that I enjoyed about it most is that they don't even bother with the plot of why the zombies show up, or all this nonsense about how to kill a zombie and what's keeping them alive, and it's about people and how they deal with the fact that there are zombies, and it's simple enough, but there's so much room for it, and it's not even a broad social commentary like George Romero has done. It's a small knit of people, and you find that the guy next to you is a larger antagonist than the zombie out there that wants to eat your brain. He's more threatening and more daunting, and I think that's cool, and there's ironies, and there's so much great stuff in there that this book deals with, and I think that's what makes it really good. I'm really glad that you guys chose us for the book of the month, and that I read it, and I can't wait to hear the show and what you guys think about it. I really like your show. And that's it, really. So I will leave you without any exit music. Just me saying goodbye. Bye.
Oh, we want that music.
I like
That was
the music.
Fabulous.
He was so inspired. That he wrote that music. That's incredible.
But exactly. He kind of mirrored what we had said earlier about, you didn't even really need the zombies to make this a good book.
I love the fact that his local library has so many comics that they're actually carrying an obscure image title like The Walking Dead. I mean, that's great.
I gotta head down to the library, see if they
Yeah,
got
my
anything.
God.
Just stop buying these books.
Reading Library for a while, when we were working, they were buying comic books from Golden Eagle, and they were stocking them. I think they were basically stocking them in their bookmobile, but they were stocking them.
That's cool. And rightly so. I mean, it's
yeah.
definite form of literature
If you're
for
stocking
popular
newspapers
culture.
and other periodicals, why
Yeah,
not a
and if you
comic
carry
book?
DVDs,
Yeah.
Wedding Singer. I mean, come on, like you're not going to have. I mean, this is something you read. That's what you go to the library for to read, right?
At least do trades, if nothing
Well,
else.
that's I
do
wouldn't
trades.
expect comics because they get ruined too
But,
easily.
but some
trades,
do, and I'm kind of surprised that they do.
Yeah. Huh.
I know that my one friend Steve goes out to the University of Utah and the library out there at the college. He can go and actually request, certain books to say, hey, you guys should carry the Walking Dead trades, or you guys should carry the Invincible trades. And next thing they went out and ordered them, and they're on the shelf. So
That's awesome.
Anybody out there who, wants to get it at the library, just go ask your librarian because they might order it.
Those wacky Mormons, they'll do anything you say.
Well, I'm gonna have to make a trip out to the library because of everybody in this room. I'm the only one that can do that during the day.
Yeah.
With enough time.
I could, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah. Did anybody get the feel? The two young girls that are with the old man, but the two young girls, as soon as they were introduced, I went, there's zombie food. Did anybody else get that feeling? Like, as soon as...
No.
I thought Lucky Bastard myself.
Yeah, that's right.
Because, it's a zombie thing. So people, like you said in the next... But somebody's going to bite it, literally, So I went, as I was reading, and not that I was looking for it, but they were introduced, and I went... Oh, come on. One or both are going to get it.
You do that in a horror movie. When you're watching a horror movie, you'll sit there and go, okay, yeah, she's dead, and he's going to die, and he'll probably be the last one alive.
Right. And just because none of them really had development until you find out one of them was a sure shot, with a gun. And I went, okay, she's going to stick around because she's safe. And I said, somebody's going to... The other one's not. Forget it.
It's the
She's not
red
gonna
shirt
make
security
it.
guard.
I thought they were
Exactly.
both developed quite nicely.
No.
You fell for that one. You looked at me like
did.
you
Well,
went
really? Oh, well, that was good.
That was a good insight.
Anybody have, their favorite moment in this trade? Something that kind of stuck out?
Just a quick question before we get off the Audio Geek. Was that original, or was that who did
I
that?
have no idea.
I thought he said that...
No, it inspired
said
him to do this
to add
audio
music.
commentary.
and then he said
and-
something about the music.
Let us know.
I
Yeah,
don't-
yeah.
I
let us
didn't
know.
get the impression that he wrote it, but
Yeah, if it was original, let us know. If it wasn't, that made me laugh. I just want to know where it was
Yeah.
from.
And if it was original, send us a copy.
Yeah, that'd be good for a Halloween party.
I think best moment was the zombie on the side of the road in the first issue. When he's going down, where he gets the bike from that he uses to ride into town after getting out of the hospital. And there's that young woman or girl in the weeds, just kind of all messed up, not able to move except just make gross noises. And he's actually, brought to tears by it, and makes it a point as he's leaving the town to try to go to Atlanta. You can't help but stop and put it out of its misery because he actually, feels something for this thing that's trying to eat him.
Oh,
that is a good moment.
Well, you mean good moment, or mean most poignant moment? Because for me, it was where the mechanic, once he realized that he was turning, he basically told them to take him to the edge of Atlanta and just let him there, and let what was going to happen to him, and he figured he'd be with his kind. He didn't want to hurt the people he was with, and I thought that was, talk about making a sacrifice, sacrificing yourself for the better good of the people. That's what makes him not an asshole.
Without making everybody shoot him or make that decision for him.
Yeah, rather than having him turn and take the chance. Because in the second one, there is a whole conundrum where what would you do if your family member or some of your family
Yeah.
had happened. I don't want to say any more because for people who haven't read it, read it because it's just good. They explore that. What would you do if, like, your sister or your son or your daughter got bitten and you could, try to do something? What would you do, and what would be the consequences of doing that?
When I read that moment that you're talking about, he says, when I come back, maybe I'll find my family, and I'm like,
yeah, because he knows his family got eaten too, so he didn't. Actually, he doesn't know. He doesn't know what happened.
No, he doesn't. But to have that kind of really kind of hopeless hope, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That he's going to come back and find it. That it was just like, woo.
Yeah.
That's just tragic. But it all goes around to what everybody's been saying. What would you do in certain situations? It's funny that this is a zombie. It's a zombie genre, horror, or whatever. But yet, and a lot of us have preconceived notions of what we would do in given situations, not zombies, but in real life situations, and so do a lot of people. And they're always like, oh, in that whole like Terry Schiavo case, oh, if that was my daughter, she'd be on that thing, she'd be on life support forever and ever and ever, and now here in a comic, it's basically the same kind of decision you have to make. Obviously, the situation is different, but you really don't know, So I'm anxious to read those later two trades to get some of that, more of those kind of moments, because that's exactly what this book is about.
I did realize, just John, when I was looking through for that moment you were just talking about, there was I think one mistake in the first trade, and that is that he didn't have enough gas in his car to get all the way to Atlanta. Now, I mean, wherever you are, okay, like I know how many miles it is to New York City, to Washington D.C., to Philadelphia, to Pittsburgh. I've driven that. If he's only a few hours from Atlanta, he's going to know, how long it's going to take him, how much gas he should need. Especially he's a cop car. He drives that car all day long, every day. He knows how many miles he's going to get before he has to fill up. And so he's at the police station. He's getting it. Why doesn't he get the extra gas can and siphon the gas out of a couple cars on the side of the road and fill up so he can get? I mean, you're going to drive. I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to make it to New York City, and I'm going to run out of gas halfway there surrounded by zombies. The guy is sensible enough to be getting guns. He's taking his time. He's not totally freaked out at that point. He's got his wits about him. He gets his uniform. He puts on his hat. He gets the car. He takes care of all that stuff. And he doesn't think to get enough gas for his car to get to Atlanta? I think that's a mistake. I think he just wanted to show him riding on a horse to Atlanta, so he had to come up with some reason to do that.
I think you're right. I think something like a roadblock or just a pileup of cars that he couldn't get around would have made a lot more sense.
Yes,
because I think they say it's like a 5-hour drive
right.
for him.
Well, one tank of gas will get you 5 hours, or damn close. So again, you just need one extra couple gallons will get you the other way. I don't know. I know it's nitpicky, but it's the one thing I went. As soon as I read, I turned that page and I went, "What? He didn't bring extra gas? What a moron!" Everything else in all three issues, like I don't see any mistakes like that. I don't see any survival mistakes. I don't see anything weird happening that goes, come on, the common sense. That's the only thing in the entire book that I didn't like.
I'm looking through it, and I see where he's coming into the city on the horse, and you're right. They would have had, if he was in a car, it wouldn't have happened that way, because he would have been a little bit safe in the car for a little bit longer, rather than thrown off the horse gets eaten, and he's like, oh shit, now what do I do? And running around for his life.
Well, and he passes all these cars on the side of the road.
Yeah.
He could have siphoned gas. You have to have a hose. But again, every car you stop, rummage through the trunk, see if there's some kind of hose you can stick in a gas tank,
There's
get the
enough
gas
hoses
out.
in the car
It's
that you could
easier
rip
than
it out.
hunting around and finding a horse.
Yeah.
But maybe the car threw a rod and it didn't just run out of gas.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Maybe. I think he says, though, it ran out of gas.
Well, because he goes to a gas station, he goes, "Damn it, not again." So maybe
he was thinking.
maybe he was thinking when he left, he was like, it's one of the things you take for granted. You know that there are gas stations on the way. So no, I'm not trying to defend it, because I totally agree with you.
But as soon as he hits the first gas station and they're out,
then you got to start
then
thinking,
you go,
just other
I'm
contingencies.
at a gas station. I'll grab one of these extra gas tanks, and then I'll go find a car that's pulled on the side of the road and steal the gas.
Even if it's only been a few weeks, I doubt that maybe the
month.
Gas station would be out, but
the pumps go are electric.
It was electric. The electric was out, so they couldn't.
yeah. But you know what? There was that movie with what was his name? $6 Million Man, Lee Majors. With the race, he was a race car driver, and there's no gas, and he's taking this race car and this kid, and he's trying to escape whatever's happening to this free California or something, and he stops and he gets a little pump out, of the gas station, starts siphoning it out from this pump of the tank itself. So he opens the tank where they pour the tanker pours the
Well,
gas
that's true.
and gets what little like inches at the bottom out to use as gas. So there is that stuff at a gas station. You just have to break in the garage, get the pump out, and start going to town on it to get your siphon.
So Robert Kirkman, because I know you're listening, you need to
Yeah.
answer that question.
Just that one question.
Yeah, that's my only complaint, Robert. Everything else is excellent. Just,
Well,
don't make the guy run out of gas.
my
No, we're going to meet him in Baltimore. He's like, you sons of bitches. What the
nitpicky. My favorite part, I'm going to say, is around the campfire, because at that point I thought, everyone's safe for just a little bit, and they start talking, and then all hell breaks loose again. Which then leads into Jim and getting bitten and whatnot.
Yeah, I thought that was a really neat visual too. I really liked
Yeah.
the artwork in that with like the snow and just the light and all that kind of stuff.
And they were starting to tell little snippets about themselves. That was where you first see it, because for the first time they feel a little bit rested and a little bit safer.
Yeah.
It goes to it also. One of the moments that I thought it's not a poignant moment or a great moment, but it definitely shows the power of Tony Moore's art ability is when they go back for the guns, and on the previous page, he's kicking the door in, Rick, and you see all the guns and the ammo. And the following page, it's that same panel, but you see all the stuff they took. You see that the display is the glass is cracked, smashed, and they took all that. They took all the guns on the wall, and it's a neat kind of before and after kind of shot. And I think the storytelling in that is beautiful, and I think that just goes to show just how Tony Moore really captured a lot of those moments.
I think that is my favorite picture, where you first see them in the city with the tank in the middle of the street, and the zombies are just everywhere as they actually make it into Atlanta to the gun shop, all smelly.
I really love the little bit where he and Shane are hunting, and they come across the zombie in the woods eating the deer, and they're like, it all of a sudden it becomes like a zoo exhibit. It's like we're really close to this thing, but it doesn't care about us, and it's like where like Rick starts to first figure out things about how to deal with. I mean, you can see that it's first time he gets a good look at them, and he's watching them, and he's trying to figure out ways around them and what to do with them, how to get away from them, things like that. And it's probably where he starts to figure out about my second favorite moment with rubbing zombie all over you and puking like crazy.
Yes.
Terry Moore does excellent projectile vomit.
Tony.
Tony Moore, that's it. That's right. It's
not
terrific.
strangers in Walking Dead.
Yes, what a crossover. Yeah.
Hey, we have another audio. This one is from Jarrett Green, and he and his girlfriend talking about it on the audio. So, what?
He asked about this on the forum, and we're like,
okay.
dude, definitely send that.
Okay, now he does say it's a little long. It's 12 minutes, which is a lot longer than our 3-minute cutoff. But
it might be interesting.
But hopefully it's interesting because I haven't listened to it yet. And if it's got two people talking, so we'll give it a go. If it starts to get boring, maybe we'll turn it off. But just a heads up here.
Hello, speakers of Geek. I am Jarrett Green.
And I'm Nicole Stanfield.
And we live in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Nicole's the English major at the university here. I just finished my master's, so I'm not really anything right now. I'm a big slacker. Anyways, I guess kind of a warning first off. I'm not crazy about zombies, and like I said, we're both English majors.
Nobody's crazy about zombies. So.
I love zombies. And we're English majors, so we tend to, I guess, maybe read a little into things and kind of overanalyze. But we'll get right into it. First of all, what I want to talk about with Walking Dead is what we liked about it. And the biggest thing, I think, is the characterization and the characters. Like the scene around the fire where they all introduce themselves. The scene where Dale talks to Rick about the girls living with him, and Rick's like, you deserve that. And the one scene that I really liked that I thought did a great job of that is where Carl is talking to Sophia, and they're talking about their dads. It's like Carl is not just some little kid. Carl feels almost like he's more mature than some of the adults, but it doesn't feel unrealistic. Even though he's a little kid who's kind of mature, he just feels like he's a smart little kid. It doesn't feel like this is not a real kid. And by the end, when Amy died, I even felt a little bit sad. I really identified with the characters.
I agree. I think the characterization is excellent. It's what brought me through the book, past the whole just another zombie story. I thought the best addition that Kirkman made was the addition of pettiness to the characters, because the conflict between Shane and Rick is something that would go on every day, but when it's got this sort of element to it, it makes it even more climactic. And I think that introducing those shallow sort of parts of humans makes drives the characters even more. So yeah, I really like the characters. I really felt for them and everything.
Yeah, even though they're in this apocalyptic situation, they're still real people.
Mhm.
I know another thing we both really liked, kind of a small thing, that I thought I was sad to see that element of the story go, was the horse.
I loved the horse.
I wanted to see that keep going and it become another character, because he's talking to it, And so for a little while it is the second character. It's just him and the horse. He talks to the horse, and it's like, all right, this is going to be an interesting character. It's going to be kind of a Western feel for a little while.
And then it's like, ah,
yeah, and then
it's
it's like,
gone.
oh man, I thought this story was going to be different. But so yeah, I liked the horse a lot. Didn't like it dying, I guess. What else I didn't really like, what we were talking about is the characters feeling real and talking and having these personalities. That's what I didn't like about the very beginning of the book, is because you don't feel that at all. The characters at the very beginning, other than Rick, feeling a little sympathy or being sad about the one zombie, you don't really get much personality. It feels really shallow at the beginning, and I was really worried that the whole book was going to be that way, and it's just like, oh man. And you get that later on, but the beginning moves really quickly, and Rick explains that later on. He says, "No, I was so busy worried about my family at first that I didn't have time to be scared." It's like, well, I guess maybe that explains it, but it's also a little bit of a cop out. So yeah, I thought the beginning could have been a lot stronger. And I always feel like the beginning and the ending should be the strongest parts of any book or story. And in this book, I feel like they're the weakest. The ending, the showdown between Shane and Rick, I saw that coming. And I guess you're kind of supposed to. I don't think Kirkman wants to surprise you with anything, really. He's not there to just totally twist the ending or whatever, which maybe the way the kid comes into the ending might be, I guess, a twist ending. And it makes it a little bit different. I didn't totally expect that ending, but I knew something. I knew Rick's the hero, so he can't die. I knew something was going to happen to Shane. Nicole, what parts of the book didn't you like?
Well, I think I kind of disagree on the beginning, just because it's hard with no narrator. It's hard when you just have a single character by himself walking around. You don't really get a whole lot of emotion, because if you were by yourself, you wouldn't, say out loud everything that you're going to do or thinking about. So, but I think Kirkman redeems himself when he brings in other characters, and you get to actually hear dialogue and hear. It becomes more real then, instead of just some guy walking around, basically. And
I guess that's something I'm used to, the narration in a lot of dialogue, no matter what point of the book it's in, because I'm used to reading Bendis, and he uses narration and a lot of dialogue to always keep the pace kind of steady and as slow as he wants it to be. And so I'm used to reading, and I read the majority of the books I read are by Bendis. So I'm used to having a writer forcing me to slow down, and Kirkman doesn't always do that.
Yeah, it moved really quickly for me, and I didn't like that as much. I kind of wanted him to slow down and, kind of take a hold of the situation a little bit more, because it did go by really quickly.
All right. Okay, well, I think overall we both liked the book. The artwork was good. I'm not crazy about black and white, but for black and white, this was really good. Usually I feel like if I'm paying the extra money that a comic book costs over a regular book, although we got a good deal on this one, I feel like I need the color too. But the story works. Black and white didn't bother me that much because Tony Moore has so much detail and a lot of in his the way he sets up each cell, his what am I trying? His
exposition?
No, his composition. Yeah, his composition is so
We're
good. His composition is so good that the black and white didn't bother me as much.
And honestly, it's a bunch of people out in the woods and a bunch of rotting people. So I mean, the color wouldn't even add too much to it anyway.
Maybe you're right. But Daredevil doesn't have a lot of color, and I love the artwork in that book. So, anyways, I think like overall, I said I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5, a 4 if it were in color.
I mean, it's just to me like a zombie movie. I'll go and I'll get popcorn and I'll enjoy it, but it's not gonna, affect me on any really deep level or anything.
Right. And I feel like I would maybe like to read the rest of this series, but I think the only reason I would be reading it is to see what happens next.
Yeah, to know what happens to the characters, which I mean is it's a compliment to the writing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to read it because his writing is so brilliant that I have to see it, like the reason I read Bendis. Or I'm not going to read it because the artwork is so great that I have to look at it, which is the way I am with Maleev and some other guys, but or Malev. I'm not sure.
I was going to say quarter in the
jar. Anyways, you mentioned that maybe there's not a whole lot of depth to the story, but I did have a theory or two about the book that I felt like what was kind of going on. Kirkman may not have intended this, and everyone who reads it probably not going to get this out of it. But one thing that I really saw is the human, and you could say it's human nature, I don't know if that's true, but at least the nature in our society to depend on something bigger than yourself, whether it be your family, the government, religion, morals, whatever. Shane keeps saying the government's going to come save us. He's relying upon that. Dale can't get over the loss of his family. Donna, thank you. Donna and her, reliance upon the morals and, critiquing the whole community. All these things kind of hold those characters back. And you could say that Rick is really reliant upon his family, but, he's very much the leader of that family. And, he's not so much reliant upon them as they are reliant upon him. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't care for them, but because he kind of transcends those things, that's why Rick is the hero. And while these other people are stuck in the past and stuck with these things hanging over their heads, Rick is ready to move on, both physically, wants to move to a different location, and kind of looking towards the future. All these other people are like, oh, they're going to save us, we need to be near the city so they can find us. And I think Rick's the only one who's willing to admit that, hey guys, we may not get saved, and that's a very big possibility the way I see it. So he's ready to just move on and accept it and live the way they're going to live now, and that's why he is the hero, is because he's not too tied to the past. And it's easy for him to be that way because his family's not dead, and he's...
Which is kind of a convenient little thing.
Yeah, I guess. But, I mean, I thought it worked. I believed it. It's a believable part of the story. But like I said, everybody seems to have something hanging over them, and I think that's almost like a critique of our whole society, if I can attach that to, this book, is, we keep dead people stored in the ground in little boxes all over the place, and, so many people are relying upon the religion to not just give this life meaning, but to give them hope for the future. And, we're so wrapped up in what's happened in the past, and you hear conservatives and older people all the time talk about the good old days. And, it's kind of like the one thing I like about zombies is they kind of express how maybe the idea of an afterlife, living after you're dead, isn't such a good idea. Maybe being so tied to the past, to things that don't exist anymore, that aren't really here anymore, isn't such a good idea. That can come back to destroy you, and literally in zombie movies that happens, and that is the one aspect of them that I like. And again, Rick's the one that kind of transcends that. I mean, you see him for a little bit at the beginning. We briefly mentioned the scene where he has some sympathy for the zombie, and then but later on he's like, you know what, you're dead, so you're in the past, I'm moving on, I'm headed towards whatever future I have. I'm going to accept that and live that way and try to survive. And so it's kind of an existential book, I think, in a lot of ways. And if I do continue reading the series, I'll definitely be looking for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Yeah. I think we've BS'd enough about The Walking Dead. Thanks a lot, guys. If you do play this, I really appreciate it. That'd be awesome. We love the show, and keep up the geeking out and nerding it up.
Bye.
Okay.
Well, he doesn't have to worry about the fact he overanalyzes stuff. No, he doesn't.
Well, he made.
That was great though, with the duality between the two.
We were, shaking our heads at a few points, and the biggest complaint I think the room was unanimous on is he's not sure if he wants to read the book, but he might get it just to see what happens next. What other reason is there to read a book except to find out what happens next? It's when you don't want to find out what happens next that you stop reading a book, right?
Well, but then he did follow up with saying, he follows basically, if it would be a writer that he was really into, or because reading this first trade, I mean, I'm the same way. I want to know what happens next. However, if we only got the one trade, although I did get 3, I don't think I would rush out to get the next 2. I mean, it's just not, it wasn't his cup of tea. So I understood his point. But I thought you were going to touch upon that he said it should be in color, and I'm like, no way. No, I think it's perfectly fine the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was saying how he pays extra, he wants color. It's like, but not every comic works in color or needs to be in color.
You didn't pay extra either. This $9.95 for this trade. This is a heck of a deal.
Yes,
for what you get
because it's $18 worth of comics for $10.
It is,
and then we got it for $6.
You try and get the issues on eBay. It's a lot more than $18 too.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, you add color, and then you got the gore, and you got the blood, and this kind of has a nice little cover over it.
You got to figure this is a $2.95 book to begin with, and he was speaking of all the Brian Michael Bendis books, especially Daredevil, which is $2.99. You really weren't spending any more than you're spending for Daredevil or any of those. So, but great. I mean, I loved listening to you go on and on about it, because it was funny. You kept going on about it, even though you were kind of saying in the beginning there wasn't a lot to talk about, but you sure found a lot to analyze in it. So it showed that I think there was there. Even it was so simplistic, and I agree what you said about the horse. The horse was the first character, but to me, right there, that showed you the rule of this book is ain't nobody safe, even a horse,
even Mr. Ed.
I liked what he said about the whole holding on to dead things or things in the past and things like that. That's a very keen observation.
How it comes back to destroy you, it surely does.
I like that.
Yeah.
I just have one last thing to say about the lack of color. Is if it's it paints a bleaker picture of the situation. If everything was all color and vivid and nice, pretty flowers in the springtime or whatever, it wouldn't be such a depressing book.
A bleak book.
Yeah. So one of the things we always want to try to do is during these Book of the Month Club episodes is, since we spotlighted Kirkman's Walking Dead, if you really enjoyed his writing, other books that he's writing or he did write, Invincible, which is also for Image.
Excellent.
Marvel Team Up.
Awesome.
Which, if you're a fan of superheroes, and I mean I think that's one of Marvel's best superheroic books right now. Battle Pope. Has anybody in the room read that?
I have heard of it. I have not read it.
I picked up the first. They're reprinting it from Image. I picked up the first one, and laugh my ass off from beginning to end. I will tell you, if you're Catholic and heavily devout Catholic, don't pick it up. You may be pissed off, or pick it up and be pissed off. But it made me laugh from beginning to end. I'm looking forward to the second one.
Can I just make a comment that has absolutely nothing to do with comics? If you're that devout, then nothing should offend you because you have complete faith that what you believe in is correct, and if people make fun of it, it shouldn't affect you in the worst way because faith overrides all that. Anyway,
Didn't the smoking thing teach you any lessons?
Sorry, I can't take it.
Now you're going to get even
more
emails.
I went to Catholic school for 12 years in grade school and then 5 years in college. I mean, I've been around Catholics enough, and it just pisses me off every time I hear somebody make such a small statement. Don't go see that movie. Don't go see that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, it's offensive. Who's it offending?
Yeah.
If you're going to let it bother you, why? You should have faith that that doesn't matter. That those people who are supposed to be offending you, they're the sinners and you're not. So just live your life and move on.
Thank you, Brian. You just took all the bad letters away from me. Thank you.
Wait, okay, back to Battle Club. You were going to say something?
I just was going to add that I also picked up the first issue. It's a book that I had heard of, that I'd seen on the shelves and kind of dismissed, years ago. And I'm glad Image is, reprinting them now that I know who Robert Kirkman is and what he's capable of doing. And I did enjoy the first issue. It is good, so I'll continue getting them.
I wonder if he came up with the titles for the Invincible trades, too, because they're pretty clever.
Yeah, I mean, we should say it says
They
Days-
reference...
The 80s sitcoms?
Yeah.
8 is enough. Perfect Strangers head of the class.
Yeah. Because this
Family
Walking
Matters.
Dead says Days Gone By, but it's by spelled B-Y-E. So, I mean, that's, that has a little twist in itself as well. Another book that's spotlighted that is actually Robert Kirkman and Tony Moore is Brit, Cold Death. There's another one by Robert Kirkman called Brit, Red, White, Black, and Blue. He also wrote Marvel Knights 2099. He wrote a Fantastic Four.
Foes,
Foes,
I
the
think it was called.
miniseries. And
He wrote Jubilee.
He wrote Jubilee.
Oh, really?
The Jubilee series.
Oh, wow. That was a while back. Just recently?
The recent Jubilee series,
Oh.
the one of Marvel's all ages
Okay.
Wow.
output.
And anything else he's currently writing at Marvel now? I can't
He's
remember.
got some project he's working on, but I don't think he's been able to say what it is yet. It's like something special coming up.
So if you're a fan of his work, check out that other stuff and check out the other Walking Dead trades if you're so willing.
And then I guess we'll let everybody know what Book of the Month Club is for September, huh?
Dun, dun, dun.
It's we're back to DC, so we are going to do Fables, the first trade by Bill Willingham. Who's the artist on that?
That's Mark Buckingham.
Oh, Mark Buckingham. He was the inker for Chris Bocciolo for a long time, and I love Buckingham's artwork.
And Fables is from DC's Vertigo line. And somebody that's read it, just give a an overview of what it is, just
It's
so we can
pretty much
pique
what-
interest.
It's pretty much, and I've been trying to get these guys to read this for years, and everybody's
We're
been
doing it,
resisting
we're
me,
doing
but
it.
they're finally coming around. It's what if all the fairy tales you read as a child were actually true, were actually in real life, actually existed in the world? What would that be like? And the first one is basically a murder mystery. I'll let it at that. Definitely pick it up and read it. If you trust us on this one. We're not steering you wrong.
Right. I mean, if you think that it's some kind of kid's book or it's not.
It's what would happen if Snow White, Cinderella, the Three Little Pigs, all existed. I know it sounds weird, and I at first kind of was hesitant, but I picked it up and I have not put it down since.
Is it what would happen if they existed in the past and the world progressed, or what if they were in right now?
If they are in the world right now,
Okay.
if they existed, if you and I would walk down the street and we would walk into Snow White, what
Okay.
would that be like? And definitely, I mean, I can't recommend this, enough.
And before we sign off, I want to thank John for finally making his appearance. Hope you had fun.
Thanks for having me. I did.
We hope to have you back one day.
And John's picks are, in my experience, usually never wrong. So
Yeah.
I feel bad that I didn't read it all this time after he's been talking about it.
The listeners on the forum, they talk about how we get people to read comics. Well, nobody has that power more than John.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many books I've read picked up because of him, and they all were great.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'll
so you
admit.
definitely have that superpower.
That's your mutant power. Okay. Well, next time you hear us, will be a regular episode, and we'll see you in approximately 30 days for the next book of the month.
Thanks for listening.
So now you're dead, Shane. I can go after Carlene.
Okay.